Good morning, CMX. My name is Paul Wilcox.
And I'm Julianne Niemaszyk, and we're here to tell you a little bit more about what we're doing with Google Community. So I first want to take a survey of the audience, if you don't mind raising your hand for I have or yes to this question, or this question. How many of you have ever had an issue with a Google product and you wind up going to search? It could be, I can't upload my video, I can't get into my Gmail account, my Google Doc is not loading. So how many? Yeah, it happens, right? So I actually want to talk a little bit about how community fits into that equation. So when people tend to do this, they have a perception that in the past has been pretty accurate, that Google actually is kind of a black hole. There's not really a place for you to get an answer, to get any support, and it's a big mess. However, this is something our company has been working on a lot. So community is one piece that we fit into this to help solve this issue. So with community, we're trying to humanize and make this feel for support a lot better. So that's where our community actually fits, is in the support organization. So there's a bunch of different ways you could actually get in contact with Google. The first is if you have an issue, you can go in product and submit feedback that actually does get to our team, and we triage a lot of the data, but you may not hear back from us. Occasionally you'll see we send close-the-loop emails where if a bug or a feature has actually launched, we'll let you know if you've reported that particular issue that it's been solved. The other area where you may get some feedback from us or get more information from us is with our help center. That's where we have a lot of our content and our education. But you know, in some of those instances, your question may be a little more specific. So that's where community really fits in, and what to us is the place where you really can get that two-way dialogue with Google. It may be the only place that someone actually interacts with a Googler or one of our volunteer experts, which Paul will go into in a little bit. So it really, in our frame of our support, provides a unique benefit about providing that two-way dialogue with our company. So as I talked about community, you may be asking, what exactly is community? There are two core platforms to our community program. The first is our forums, which have been our bread and butter and been around for a very long time. And the second is, more recently, we launched a Twitter support program that Paul will be going to as well. So I'm going to talk really quickly first about our help forums. So as I mentioned, they're our bread and butter. We have 72 forums in 18 languages for 32 products. So they're quite large. And as I just mentioned, you may be, in that first example, Googling how to upload a video to YouTube. And you actually end up here on that link there. So you would jump into that and open a thread in our community forum. So 75% of our users come to our community through that experience, and hopefully we'll see an answer from either a Googler or from one of our experts to their question. Actually, 85% of the questions that come in within 24 hours have some type of response on them. So that's something we really strive to improve and measure our results on. So Paul, really quickly now, is going to talk about the social support.
So as Julianne mentioned, social support is something we've only been concentrating on for about 3 years. And we're doing this primarily through Twitter. There's two channels that we're concentrating on Twitter. The first is consumer responses from the official Twitter handle. So if you tweet a Gmail problem, you might hear back from @Gmail. If you're having a problem with ordering from the store, you might hear back from @Google Store. And that gives the really official spin to it. We really want to take the power of the platform to strive for immediacy, so we try to get as many of those answered in under an hour as we can. The other way is that we've actually built a custom platform that we call Help on Social that our experts, which I'm going to talk about next slide, have access to, which plucks from the great Twitter fire hose support-related conversations about individual products. And then our expert users can go in and indicate that I'm a calendar expert or I'm a docs expert, and only see Google conversations about those two products that they can then choose to respond to if they want to. Okay, we've hinted at this program where we've got volunteers. At Google, we call them top contributors. We've got about 1,000 of them worldwide in many different countries. They speak lots and lots of different languages, and they are a really powerful tool for us. These are people who are passionate about Google products and love using them and love talking about them. And they hang out in our forums and on Twitter, and when we ask them, why are you here, they not only tell us that they're passionate about the products, but they're also passionate about helping other people. And they've just married those two passions together, and they're, through their great generosity, hanging out in our community channels. Since this is such a powerful tool for us, we spend a lot of time giving them a lot of love. So for example, we try to give them as often as we can early access to products before or new features before they've launched to the public, so they can do some beta testing. They have such intimate knowledge of the products and how our users use them that they give really excellent high-quality feedback before a product is launched. We give them access to Googlers. Now, primarily that's our community team. We hear from all of our top contributors dozens and dozens of times a day through a variety of different channels, chat and forums and email and all of that. And they get to have inside conversations with us. And then whenever we can, we connect them with other parts of Google too. So we'll have video hangouts that allow our top contributors to speak with our product managers and engineers that are working on their favorite products, and that they can then feel like they're actually having an influence and a conversation with the product that they're most interested in. And that's very empowering to them. Lastly, we try to bring them together whenever we can. Every other year we have a great big summit where we fly as many of them as we can from all over the world here to the San Francisco Bay Area in a big event space like this one, and have them together for a few days, have a big sort of conference experience for them where they get to meet each other live and meet with us live, since usually we're only talking with them halfway around the world via email or chat or forum. And then, of course, we also let them talk again to engineers and product managers and give them more advanced looks at the stuff that they're the most passionate about at Google. Now we'd like to take just a moment to talk about how community has led to a couple of successes for our company.
So I'm going to give one example, actually. So we've talked a lot about how our experts help our users, but another thing is that we use our community to help influence product teams. I'm actually the Google Docs community manager, and one of the most exciting things that's happened for me in the last year is actually this example I'm about to share. So in March 2015, we noticed through a lot of the data in our forums, we also have international docs forums, that a lot of users were coming in and saying, we don't have localized formulas. Google Sheets was offering only English formulas, and unnamed competitors actually have this localized formulas available. So we brought a lot of this data, how many people were asking for it, the amount of views that were on some of our threads, to the product team, who also realized this is a huge issue. Within, I think it's about 4 months, they built out the entire feature to have localized formulas across the globe. So we actually then enrolled our experts into what we call a trusted tester, which is an ability for them to test something prior to launch and be able to provide feedback directly to the product team. So we actually had 75 reports come in from all our experts that were testing this, and there were 6 huge bugs that they identified that the product team was able to fix prior to launch. So a few months later in December, we launched it. It was in 21 languages, and it actually had hundreds of thousands of people going in and changing their language settings for their formulas. So I think this is a great example of how we were able to use the data in our community and our expert program to really add value to the product team. And it's something they're very thankful for and always looking for new ways to identify issues and solutions like this in the future.
And a couple of social examples. On the right-hand side is a very simple one. Through our Help on Social platform, one of our Nexus top contributors, I do Pixel and Nexus, so this one's close to my heart, had just saw a tweet from a random person whose phone was stuck in a reboot loop, and they just sent them over a quick link to a Help Center article. It's a really simple and easy transaction, but the result there speaks for itself. Hashtag, this is the reason I love Google. And what's fun about that hashtag is that there's no official Google presence there in that thing, and yet we were able to bring that moment of delight to that user. The example on the left is a little bit darker. In the wake of the terrible Paris terrorist attacks, users of Google Maps in Paris noticed that when they searched Google Maps for the acronym Daesh, which is another acronym for what we call ISIS or ISIL, that the Bataclan, the site of the worst attack, was the Maps result and was labeled, essentially labeling a spot in their own city as a terrorist spot. And they were outraged and horrified by this and mentioned it on Twitter. And we noticed that feedback immediately. And we were able to very rapidly escalate this to the Maps team and let them know about this feedback that we'd just seen through social media. And the Maps team was able to double check and go, yes, this does not meet our editorial guidelines. This is not a good use of Google Maps. Make the change to remove that listing. And again, because of the immediacy of the platform, the folks in Paris noticed that we'd made the change and expressed their gratitude on social media. Last example, another quick and easy one. A classroom full of autistic children had an art project and made a Google logo on their own, and they were proud of it, and they took a picture of it and posted it in our forums. And we noticed this, and it only took us a couple of minutes to gather a few of our community managers together, put on some Google swag, take a photo of us holding up their photo, and post a reply to them in the forum. We think of these as moments of micro delight, these little human interactions that we're able to give, because we know we're a big company, and we know that it's hard to see the human face inside what we're doing. But when we're able to do this, we're able to bring that sense of humanity to what Google does. Which leads us to our key takeaways. Just because you have huge scale does not mean that you have to be robotic, or in our case, I guess, a bit Android-like. We are there to put a human face on a company that most people don't get to interact with. You have to constantly innovate in community to push the boundaries of what you're doing, like in our Help on Social example, where we're actually finding ways to reduce the Twitter feed down to make it useful to a subset of our power users to interact with customers and with Google. And finally, that it's the little delights that matter, because community is ultimately about human connection. And we in the community team at Google are there to do whatever we can to connect with our users and give them a delightful human experience. With that, this has been Julianne and Paul. We know we've only scratched the surface of community at Google, but we'll be back in just a few minutes to take your questions if you'd like to dive deep on any of these subjects. Thank you very much.
Thank you.